the Remington Model 770, known as the Poor Man 700. Is it junk or will it work? Let's find out. In this series, this is part one, we're going to talk about Accurizing the Model 770 and why we would do it. Instantly, a lot of people are going to look away from this and say, why would you waste your time? Personally, because it's a budget rifle and this is more common in a lot of homes than you might is a much cheaper option, and this will suffice for some people. Now, I stumbled across this Model 770 chambered in 7mm rim mag, and the price was right. I actually traded to do some work for a customer, and he brought me this rifle in return. This rifle is supposedly used, but looks like it has never been fired once. So where in the world did the Remington 770 even come from? Well, back in 2001, Remington came out with a series of rifles known as the Model 710. They are an economical firearm, and they have a little bit of success, but in 2002, they were recalled because of a safety issue. Then in 2006, they decided to go an even cheaper route and use polymer frames, and the 710 was heavily criticized and removed from Remington's offerings. Then in 2007, they reintroduced it as the Model 770 with a price tag of under $300 with a scope. Now, this particular one, I believe this is the original scope that came on it. There is absolutely no name, no nothing. This is a basic generic 3-9x40 scope, but it will get the job done. We're going to see how it performs anyways. So, a little bit about the rifle. It's 8.5 pounds. This particular one is a Magnum version, so it is 44.5 inches in total length with a 24-inch barrel. And the magazine is detachable and holds a total of 3 rounds. So, first bolt-action rifle that I personally own that has a detachable magazine. I'm kind of digging that. The standard models, which there are plenty of different calibers offered, is 42.5 inches in length and has a 22-inch barrel. And we have a Remington Model 770 sitting over here that is a 243 that has the short 22-inch barrel. I guess it's not short, but it's the 22-inch version. So the thing is, what can we do with a Remington Model 770? That's the question that's been asked. These particular rifles are engineered in such an odd way that they are almost to the point where doing anything to these is kind of impractical. It really is. If you're going to spend $300 on a gun and then spend $700 to accurize it, there's absolutely no point. You might as well buy a nicer rifle. But with me having the skill set to do this stuff, I just feel like doing it. So I'm going to see what we can do and show you guys what is the maximum accuracy that we can get out of a cheap, under $300 rifle. Now, these rifles, I am assuming, will not last. I don't expect this thing to last me very long. This is not going to be one of those guns that sits in the gun safe and when I die, my kids are going to be fighting over it. This is just a plain Jane hunting rifle, and it'll get used this year. It's either going to be this or maybe another rifle that I have sitting in the safe, but I think I'm going to attempt to take this particular rifle out. It's nice and light. Barrel contour is good, nice long barrel, but we are going to end up machining a muzzle brake for it because of my neck and back issues. I need to try to mitigate that recoil as much as possible. We will be doing some custom coating on this, and we are going to attempt to bed this rifle, bed the stock and bed the scope mount. Now, these rings are not the original rings on here. The original rings that came on this rifle, they did not engage the actual rail at all, like hardly at all. I'm surprised that the scope even stayed on, and when you looked at it, the scope was actually canted on the receiver. The thing is these things are supposedly coming from the factory bore-sighted, ready to pull out of the box and hit at 100 yards. I have yet to this day see any scope come from either Remington or Mossberg, whatever the case may be, and it actually be leveled. And I mean, it's bore-sighted, but the scope is not leveled at all. I'm not sure who's doing that, but there's a disconnect there somewhere. And I promise it's not my vision. I have leveled these rifles, put a level on the scope, and they're nowhere close to level, which affects your accuracy. So we're going to see what we can do. I know that my property, the furthest we can shoot is about 300 yards, so that will be more than sufficient to test this particular rifle out. We're going to take it out there, we're going to see what we can do with it. But I'm going to post some pictures of the engineering of this particular rifle. As you can see, instead of 2, they used 3 screws to hold this rifle in its stock. Now the reason why there's 3 and not 2 is because the barrel is a press fit barrel. It is not threaded into the receiver. This is an interesting design in itself, and I'm not sure why they went this route. They say it's for saving money. However, you've just made it to the point where people will not be able to work on these. I personally could remove this barrel and set one back in. It would be a pain in the butt, but it could be done. However, there are no options. There are no aftermarket options to put a heavier barrel on here. I think the main goal of this thing was to never be upgraded and just for something to have if you needed it, just to get the job done, and honestly not for a lengthy period of time. And that is perfectly fine. I'm not dogging that. These rifles are not designed to be upgraded, but I can't ever leave anything alone, so we're going to attempt it. As you can see, the stock screws actually, one goes into the barrel, one goes through the receiver into the barrel, and then the final screw in the very back is a tiny little screw, and it is designed to keep the rear tang down. The rear tang is plastic, and it also holds the trigger assembly and the safety as well. Now the trigger housing, the safety, all of that is metal. However, the rear tang of the rifle is plastic. I'm not sure why they did that. And the thing that concerns me is the rear screw is going into basically a metal collet that has been, or a metal sleeve that has been put into injection molded plastic. So I don't know how well that's going to hold up. I guess we'll find out. However, it is secure, and there is a recoil lug that is set in the stock, and that recoil lug sits into a groove that the barrel sits on top of. So it does have a recoil lug. I don't think we're going to have a problem with things breaking, but it is what I like to think as overly engineered to be cheap, when in reality it probably would have cost exactly the same if you just would have done a traditional thread and barrel with a regular lug, like Savage and like the rest of the Remingtons. They for some reason decided that this was a good idea, so I guess we'll find out. Now, one of the biggest complaints with these rifles is that the bolt itself is sticky. The 243 that we have here, the bolt is incredibly sticky even after we lube it. This one is incredibly smooth and works perfectly well. And speaking of that, the actual bolt head itself is a 3-lug design, so that's pretty nifty. Now, as for the actual trigger and the safety itself, the trigger has very minimal creep, and I'm really kind of surprised. It's not a super light trigger, but compared to some of the other rifles that I shoot, such as the old Mausers, the Mosins, the Carcanos, things like that, this actually has a fairly decent trigger and not a lot of creep in it. There is, I mean, a minute amount of creep, but not much, which was way better than I expected, especially considering the rifle is less than $300. The safety is right there on your thumb, very similar to the Remington Model 700s and a majority of other rifles. Got a thumb safety right there to position, so even if the safety is on, you can still cycle the bolt. And I will try to show you the trigger real quick. Very, very little creep. I actually have not tested the weight on this. I don't think the trigger gauge that I have, the pull gauge, is actually going to be able to tell me what the weight is, because it does seem pretty heavy, but at the same time that doesn't bother me because I do prefer to have a little bit of a heavier trigger in it, especially for a hunting rifle. I don't need something that's sitting at 2 pounds or 1.5 pounds when you're lugging this thing through the woods or through the field, whatever the case may be. So that's pretty much an overall review. It does indeed have sling studs that are in here. I went ahead and threw my bipod on here from another rifle just to kind of get a feel for it. It does have 2 studs that are in there. The one thing that drives me nuts, and if anybody can answer this, I would really appreciate it. Why is the trigger guard the shape that it is? I do not understand that in the least. However, the stock is fairly decent. You'll see in the pictures here that I post that the inside of the stock isn't really a filled-in stock. It's the overall weight of this rifle is pretty hefty, even for the short action standard model. It still weighs around 8.5 pounds, and it's still kind of a hefty rifle, but the stock is hollowed out, but yet it still maintains a fairly decent weight. So it's kind of confusing when if you just were to look at the stock itself, you would think that, oh man, that thing probably weighs close to nothing, but it actually does have some heft to it. So we will be adding a little bit of weight to it when we bed it. We'll be bedding it a little differently than we usually would with a standard rifle, just because of the way that the action screws are in this, and we're going to attempt it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not really out anything, but at least we can try to bed this rifle. You can actually see here that there is some gap. Well, I don't even know if you can see that. There is some gap between the receiver and the stock itself. We're going to try to get that filled in and see if we can accurize this thing at all, and maybe take some of the pressure off this back tang screw that's back there, because there's not a whole lot that's really holding it on the back. I don't know. I just don't really care for how it's set up. So maybe we can remove some of that pressure, that felt recoil in the back there on that tiny little tang screw, and see if maybe we can prolong the life of this thing. But this is, like I said, part 1. We're going to take this rifle out. We are going to shoot it and group it as is from the factory, and see how it performs. And then we're going to see if we can bring that in and see if maybe doing just some minor things can, you know, make this a little bit more of a reliable rifle. Hopefully when we're done, it looks nice and it will serve for a little while until we can do some other projects, but this is currently the one we're working on. So Accurizing the 770. Stay tuned. We will have more to this. Any comments would be appreciated. I mean, if anybody has any experience with the Model 770, let me know. This is my first time really dealing with one other than the 243 that we have over here. So I'm kind of excited to get this started. But if anybody has any stories about them, I've heard mixed reviews, feel free to drop that information in the comments below. Like I said, we are going to continue to make YouTube videos. We are not making any money on YouTube. None of that stuff. I'm not asking for you to go to a Patreon account, nothing like that. This is strictly educational, and we're going to see what we can do with this thing. So hopefully we can make a pretty decent little shooter out of a rifle that costs less than $300. I guess we'll see. So thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned, and if you guys want to know more and actually see this project unfold in a step-by-step basis, we will be uploading the videos as we go. However, check out our Facebook page. Just type in True Arms LLC on Facebook. You will see our logo. Click on that, or we are on Instagram at True Arms Custom Gun Works, and you can see what we do every little step as we go if this is something you're interested in following. Down the road, we do have some other projects we're going to do. We are going to be going over the budget build 300 blackout that we did. I have the videos shot for that, so we will be getting that uploaded soon, and hopefully you guys enjoy that video. But we will be doing more, I promise. Life is finally starting to slow down a little bit, so hopefully we can get some more stuff uploaded. I hope you guys enjoy it. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the subscribers that we have and the information, the help that we've gotten from people. Feel free to spread us around, get some more subscribers for us, get the information out there, because believe it or not, we do actually get business from YouTube. I know that they are very anti this and anti that, but we actually have received multiple people sending us firearms and bringing us work because of videos they've actually seen on YouTube. So thank you so much for our clients and our customers and everybody that supports us. Feel free to message us. If you want to call, go ahead and call us. We are around. So thank you again. Stay tuned. More things coming. So thanks again, and God bless.